HOA called the sheriff on my own million-dollar land. I never imagined that owning my dream property could turn into the most terrifying chapter of my life. Every penny I had saved, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, it was all for this one piece of land worth $1 million. I had followed every rule, paid every fee, and thought I was in complete control. I was wrong. The first warning signs were subtle. A letter slipped under my door about a fence, a minor complaint about my landscaping, a note questioning the color of my house trim. I laughed, thinking it was nothing, but the HOA had started a plan I could never see coming. I responded immediately. The fence was straightened, the lawn pruned, the trim repainted exactly how they wanted. I assumed the matter was closed. I assumed I could finally enjoy my dream home. Then the phone calls started. Calm at first, then sharp, insistent. Representatives from HOA asked questions about my property, my activities, even my presence on the land. Each call carried a subtle threat disguised as concern. Every word felt like a warning hidden beneath politeness. The first shock came one quiet morning. I heard heavy knocking. I opened the door to find two sheriff deputies standing there, papers in hand. My heart froze. The HOA had called the sheriff on me, on my own property, my dream land, my life's work. The accusations were absurd: illegal construction, unauthorized modifications, alleged trespassing on my own land. Every claim was false, but the power behind them was real. HOA representatives watched as if this was entertainment, enjoying the fear on my face. I tried reasoning. I showed deeds, permits, every official document proving my ownership. Nothing mattered. HOA had connections, influence, and a mastery of bureaucratic loopholes I could never imagine. Their power didn't come from law, it came from intimidation, manipulation, and control. Neighbors appeared, quietly observing, some in disbelief, some too afraid to step in. Everyone understood that HOA could target anyone. My property had become a battlefield. I was one man against an organization capable of bending rules, law, and authority to its will. Over the next few days, letters and notices flooded in. Fines for minor infractions I didn't even know existed, threats of legal action, rules suddenly stricter than ever. Every action I took on my own land was scrutinized, judged, and weaponized against me. The first deep realization hit me: HOA is not just a community management group. It is a financial and psychological machine designed to control property owners, intimidate them, and extract power from fear. Every small rule is a tool. Every minor complaint is a weapon. I spent nights thinking, how could something I invested my life into become the source of terror, manipulation, and stress? How could the very organization meant to maintain order become the ultimate threat? The nightmare had only just begun. I started documenting everything. Every call, every letter, every interaction. I needed a plan because the HOA's influence stretched far beyond what most homeowners ever see. The twists in their methods were shocking. They didn't just enforce rules, they created fear. They didn't just fine, they threatened, they manipulated, they trapped. My dream home was no longer a safe haven. It was the epicenter of a carefully orchestrated battle. A battle where knowledge, strategy, and courage were the only weapons against an organization that could call law enforcement on you, even on your own land. HOA escalates. Their attack the days after the sheriff incident were worse than I could have ever imagined. Letters, notices, and threats kept arriving non-stop. Fines multiplied overnight. Rules I had never known existed suddenly appeared, and violations I couldn't have imagined were being enforced. It felt like every action I took on my property, every choice I made, became a weapon in HOA's hands. Then came the next shock. HOA sent inspectors claiming emergency violations and demanded immediate compliance. They scrutinized every corner of my land, the fence, the driveway, even the placement of my trees. I realized then that this wasn't about rules. It was about control, intimidation, and fear. I tried speaking with the board members, reasoning, appealing, showing evidence of my compliance. But every interaction seemed to fuel their aggression. HOA representatives smiled while threatening legal action. It was clear they thrived on power and they wanted mine broken. The twisting part hit when a neighbor approached me. He whispered that others had faced the same nightmare, people forced to pay thousands in fines or give up property because HOA found ways to prove violations that never existed. They had a history of crushing anyone who resisted. The realization was chilling. I was not alone, and I was now a target in a system built to trap property owners. HOA escalated further. Notices turned into official-looking legal documents, claiming I had violated covenants that were buried deep in the fine print of the original agreements. Threats of court action, liens, and possible seizure of property loomed over me. Each day felt like a battle I couldn't escape. The psychological toll was relentless. Anxiety became constant. Fear was a shadow over every decision. Sleep vanished. I couldn't enjoy my own home, my own land, without expecting the next attack from HOA. It was a nightmare crafted by bureaucracy, manipulation, and power, but I refused to break. I began gathering every scrap of evidence. Old notices, photos of my property, expert statements, and legal interpretations. I realized that the more I learned about HOA, the more twisted their tactics appeared. They didn't just punish, they engineered chaos, made rules ambiguous, and waited for property owners to slip so they could strike. Then came the ultimate twist. HOA tried to convince law enforcement again that I was non-compliant. Every action I took was scrutinized and twisted to appear illegal. Every document, every fence, every change I made became ammunition in their war. The realization hit hard. The system was rigged, and I had to fight smarter, not harder. This wasn't just about fines or rules anymore. It was a war for control over my life, my property, and my peace of mind. Every call, every notice, every visit from HOA escalated the tension. I realized the nightmare was designed to wear me down, to make me surrender. I knew then that winning would require more than compliance. I needed strategy, precision, and courage. I needed to understand their methods, anticipate their moves, and strike back with knowledge. Only then could I protect my dream, my million-dollar land, and my freedom from a system built to destroy anyone who dared challenge it. HOA turns my home into a nightmare. The nightmare didn't stop. Every day, HOA found new ways to escalate their attacks. What started as minor complaints became full-blown investigations. Inspectors arrived unannounced, taking pictures, measuring fences, questioning my every move. My own home felt like a trap. Every corner, every detail, every decision was scrutinized. Then came the shock that made my blood run cold. HOA claimed that my driveway was violating historical alignment regulations buried in paperwork I had never even seen. They demanded immediate correction or face legal action and massive fines. The twisting part, the rules they cited were contradictory, impossible to follow fully, and designed to create failure. Neighbors whispered warnings. Some had given in, paying thousands just to keep peace. Others had lost their properties to HOA's relentless pressure. It became clear that HOA didn't just enforce rules. They engineered fear, manipulated facts, and weaponized bureaucracy. One morning, I received a notice claiming I had altered the landscape in a way that supposedly blocked a community easement. I had done nothing wrong. Yet the document made it sound like I was criminally negligent. It felt like my home, my million-dollar sanctuary, was being turned against me. The emotional toll was unbearable. Anxiety gnawed at me. Sleep became impossible. Every sound outside my home, the mailman, a neighbor, even the wind, felt like a potential threat. HOA had made my home a constant battlefield, a place where I could never feel safe. But the deeper I dug, the more twisted the picture became. HOA had legal advisors, inspectors, and allies in local enforcement who seemed ready to act on their every claim. I realized then that fighting HOA required more than compliance. It required strategy, cunning, and precision. I began documenting everything meticulously, every visit, every notice, every phone call. I knew that HOA thrived on mistakes, even the smallest ones, and would exploit them mercilessly. Their system was designed not to be fair. It was designed to crush resistance and make owners surrender. Then came the ultimate twist. A supposedly neutral mediator from the county sided with HOA's interpretation of the rules, ignoring all my evidence. I understood then that HOA's power was not just legal, it was psychological. They controlled the narrative, manipulated perceptions, and isolated their targets until defeat seemed inevitable. I felt trapped, but I refused to give up. I studied every legal clause, every previous case, every loophole. The nightmare was relentless, but the more I understood, the more I realized I could fight back. Knowledge and courage were my only weapons against a system built to intimidate and destroy. HOA had made one thing perfectly clear: owning your home in their community was not a privilege, it was a challenge, a test, a war, and if you faltered, the consequences were catastrophic. My million-dollar dream had become a high-stakes battlefield, and the fight for survival had only just begun. HOA pushes the limits. By now, I understood that HOA had no intention of stopping. What began as minor disputes had escalated into a relentless campaign of intimidation and control. Notices turned into legal documents, fines multiplied exponentially. Every action I took, even the smallest, was scrutinized and twisted to appear as a violation. One morning, I received a letter claiming that my garden layout violated unspecified aesthetic guidelines. The fines were staggering, the deadlines impossible. The threat: court action, liens, or forced removal of property features. I realized then that HOA wasn't enforcing rules, they were creating traps designed to make me fail. I sought legal counsel thinking the law would protect me, but HOA's tactics were deeper than I imagined. Their attorneys cited obscure clauses, technicalities, and previous rulings that seemed nearly impossible to challenge. Every defense I presented was met with counterarguments designed to wear me down mentally and financially. The psychological warfare was the worst. HOA representatives began showing up unexpectedly, sending letters in rapid succession and questioning neighbors about my compliance. Fear became constant. Anxiety gnawed at every decision. I started to feel like my home itself had become an enemy, a place where I could never relax or feel safe. Then came the most shocking twist. HOA threatened to involve law enforcement again, claiming I was non-compliant with multiple covenants. They presented selective evidence, twisting facts to make me appear guilty. The power they wielded was staggering. My own property was now at the mercy of an organization determined to dominate every detail of my life. I realized that fighting HOA would require more than money, more than legal knowledge. I needed strategy, foresight, and psychological resilience. They weren't just opponents, they were predators, experts at identifying fear and exploiting it. Every misstep could cost me thousands or even put my ownership in jeopardy. I began planning meticulously. Every notice was archived, every interaction documented, every law clause scrutinized. The more I understood their system, the more twisted it appeared. HOA didn't just enforce, they manipulated, intimidated, and engineered situations to break you. The stakes were higher than I ever imagined. My dream home, my million-dollar property, was no longer just a place to live. It had become a battlefield where every day was a fight to maintain control over my life. The realization was chilling. HOA would stop at nothing, and neither could I. HOA's final assault, HOA's attacks had reached a terrifying peak. Every day brought a new letter, a new inspection, or a new fine. Threats of legal action hung over my head like a storm ready to strike. They claimed violations I didn't commit, cited rules buried deep in fine print, and twisted facts to make me appear guilty. My million-dollar home had become a battlefield of bureaucracy, manipulation, and fear. The twisting part came when HOA tried to pressure the sheriff's office again, claiming I had ignored multiple compliance warnings. I had all the proof of my innocence: permits, photographs, correspondence, but they presented a narrative that seemed official, undeniable, and terrifying. It was clear that their power wasn't just administrative, it was psychological, designed to make me question my own reality. Neighbors started avoiding me, fearful of being associated with someone at war with HOA. Whispers circulated about fines, lawsuits, and property seizures. every friendly glance felt like judgment. Every casual conversation about my land felt like a potential betrayal. HOA had isolated me, not just legally but socially, turning my own community against me. Then came the legal letters, massive fines, threats of liens, and notices claiming property violations that had no basis. The numbers were shocking. I calculated how much they were trying to extract from me, and it felt like a war for $1 million in intimidation and control. Every document, every claim, every signature was a weapon in their relentless campaign. I realized the battle could not be fought blindly. I needed a strategy. I needed to anticipate their moves, document everything meticulously, and prepare to strike back with evidence, facts, and legal precision. HOA's system thrived on fear, confusion, and compliance. I needed to fight with knowledge, courage, and determination. The psychological twists were brutal. HOA representatives showed up unexpectedly, inspected property changes, and spoke in a tone that suggested authority beyond law. Each interaction was a test, designed to push me to a breaking point. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. My home, my dream property, was no longer just a place to live. It was a battlefield, a war zone of rules, intimidation, and strategy. But amidst the chaos, a realization struck me. HOA's power came from fear, and fear could be defeated with preparation and resolve. I began formulating a plan, documenting every action, gathering evidence, and preparing to defend not just my property, but my freedom, my peace of mind, and my right to live without intimidation. This was no longer just a dispute. It was a war for my life's work, my $1 million dream, and my sanity. HOA had escalated everything to the extreme, but I was ready. I was determined. And I would not surrender. HOA meets their match. The battle with HOA had pushed me to the edge. Every day, their letters, inspections, and threats escalated in intensity. It felt like a war designed to crush me, to break my spirit, to make me surrender my $1 million dream. But I had learned their tactics, studied their rules, and anticipated their moves. The nightmare they had created was about to meet its match. I gathered all my evidence, permits, photographs, correspondence, timestamps, and legal references. Every violation they had claimed, every twisted interpretation of rules, every attempt to intimidate me, I had documented it all. For the first time, I felt power shift from fear to control. The showdown came in the form of a legal hearing. HOA presented their case with confidence, expecting me to falter. But I presented my evidence systematically, countering every claim, exposing every manipulation, and revealing the truth hidden behind their bureaucracy. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent battle of wills. The turning point was undeniable. Their own tactics, meant to confuse and terrify, were now exposed. Every twisted argument was dismantled. Every threat of fines or liens was challenged. The power HOA thought it wielded evaporated under the weight of evidence and preparation. Neighbors who had once avoided me watched in awe, their whispers of fear transformed into admiration. The organization that had tried to isolate, intimidate, and control me was now facing a wall they could not overcome. I realized that courage, strategy, and relentless documentation were more powerful than fear and manipulation. The final blow came when HOA attempted one last intimidation tactic, an official notice claiming violations I had already corrected multiple times. I presented proof that not only had I complied, but their own records were inconsistent and contradictory. The room fell silent. For the first time, HOA had no answer, no leverage, no victory. It was over. My home, my $1 million property, was safe. I had turned the tables, not with force, but with preparation, knowledge, and unwavering determination. The nightmare was defeated and the dream restored. I walked through my property, finally free from fear. Every fence, every tree, every corner I had once feared was now a testament to resilience. HOA had tested me in every way possible, but I had endured, learned, and emerged victorious. Owning your dream home in the face of relentless intimidation is not easy. It requires courage, strategy, and the will to fight. I had faced the worst HOA could throw at me and had won. And in that victory, I discovered something more valuable than money: control over my life, my peace, and my freedom.